It happened. ASUS asked $5,090 for an RTX 5090 after canceling a user's order who already paid $4,607 for it. Actually, it seems like the 5090 may be a bit of a meme. The source of this seems to be this Reddit post where the user ordered on the Nvidia marketplace for $4,607, but then that was canceled with Nvidia blaming ASUS and ASUS blaming Nvidia, and it seems to be that basically the Nvidia marketplace showed one price. ASUS had already increased prices, but that hadn't trickled down to the Nvidia marketplace post yet, so the order got canceled because clearly they can't sell you a 5090 for $4,607. They need to sell it to you for $4,982 before taxes, and that seems to be where WCCF Tech is getting the 5090 from, is a loose interpretation of taxes to reach a meme price. All my sources will be in the video description today, but in general, it is looking like prices are going up, with ASUS and Gigabyte reportedly raising GPU prices by around 20% in China, with up to $666 for flagship models. If we look at videocards.com, they've tracked it card by card here, with that 666 unfortunate number there being on a GeForce RTX 5090 DV2 from ASUS. That's a $4,500 RMB increase, which apparently translates to 666 US dollars. So we're getting all the meme prices today. The RTX 5050 even looking like it's going up $89. Cards like the RTX 3060, $141 increase. So this is not looking good, and it looks like multiple regions, because in Japan, apparently Gigabyte is increasing price of graphics cards by up to 40%, and stores are warning of possible order cancellations. If you ordered a card before the price increase at one price, it won't be able to be fulfilled, because it looks like August is when a bunch of price increases hit all at once. We have RTX 50 prices rising by 30% on average in South Korea within days. Again, it really looks like the beginning of August was perhaps the end of still somewhat affordable-ish graphics cards. Like, prices haven't been great, but they haven't been hit as badly as just like buying RAM sticks directly or SSDs, if you look at it as a percentage of the price increase compared to MSRP. Things are starting to look a lot worse since August began, and things aren't looking like they're going to get much better. Memory capacity for all of 2027 has reportedly been booked and sold, with no more DRAM or HBM available. According to a new report, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron's DRAM and HBM memory capacity for 2027 is now sold out, with no additional supply available. This coming from Tweaktown. And we're seeing that almost paradoxically, motherboard prices are also apparently expected to rise by maybe even 50%, which is absolutely crazy. Considering you would think in a pure supply and demand situation that with memory prices going crazy leading to a collapse in PC builds and PC sales, which we have seen reported, you would think that that would mean that the motherboard prices would go down since demand is going down, but it's looking like that the reports are that prices will actually increase by at least 50% in 2026. In addition, the prices of raw materials such as copper, surface mount capacitors, power devices, and supporting control chips have also risen significantly, with multiple factors contributing to overall increase in motherboard material cost. So basically, despite demand collapsing, prices could go up on even more computer components. This just sounds absolutely amazing. And if you're thinking about giving up on PC gaming and just grabbing a console, well, the Series S has now reached the launch price of a Series X, despite this being the tail end of this console generation. And we have just never seen anything like this, where the consoles are continuing to get more expensive than they were at launch throughout the generation, when usually you get like half the original MSRP available by this point in a console's lifespan. Where we have the Xbox Series S 512GB version launched in Europe at 300 euros, had it increased to 350 and is currently up to 500. So that's absolutely crazy. The Xbox Series S 1 terabyte version launched at 350 and is currently at 600. And the Xbox Series X originally launched at 500 and is now at 750 for the 1 terabyte digital edition. And if you want a disk drive, you're up to 800 euros. So the increases since launch, respectively, are 66.7%, 71.4%, 50%, and 60% for those models, which is just absolutely insane. Compared to any other console generation we have ever seen. Now, we are seeing that original Xbox games, as well as Xbox 360 and One and Series disc licenses, all could follow players to future Xbox devices, and it's looking more and more like that could be also including PC, since it seems like the next Xbox is some sort of a Windows PC-ish type device. We're seeing some leaked documents from Xbox talking about turning physical disc owners into digital customers. This has been rumored for a long time, but we're now seeing what is supposedly leaked documents. They do seem to be well sourced, so there is a good chance that this is actual official documents that are leaked rather than fakes. Describing the disc to digital, it says, turn physical disc owners into digital customers. Player inserts an Xbox One or Series disc into any Xbox One Series X console with an optical drive. A digital license is granted, bound to that disc and the player's account. The game then follows the player to any Xbox device, including devices with no disk drive. If the disc changes hands, the license transfers to the new player on next play, and the prior entitlement is revoked. No duplication or abuse. Timing: Insider Public Beta, July 2026. And GA, I guess, general audience or something like that, August 2026. Publisher action, none required. So that's certainly interesting. It looks like it's saying that this, they're also talking about the backwards compatibility on PC alongside this program. So notice that the disk to digital is described as program 1, and then program 2, so a separate program, is being described as backwards compatibility on PC, which we've already seen begin to launch with some original Xbox games being able to be played on PC now for the first time officially. So extend your original Xbox and Xbox 360 catalog to next-gen Xbox devices. Reaches Helix, Xbox PCs, and handhelds. A Microsoft-built emulator runs locally on PC. Titles appear as standard Xbox PC games. Same account, same cloud saves. Microsoft manages all engineering, the bespoke emulator, title-by-title certification and testing, storefront merchandising, and player support. You keep rights, pricing, and brand control. Original Xbox titles ship first, then Xbox 360. Timing: early access July 2026 for original Xbox games. Full launch October 2026. With Xbox 360 games coming in 2027 and 2028. So this is clearly facing game publishers. So when they're describing you keep the rights, pricing, and brand control, this is Xbox describing this program to their game publishing partners, etc. But this is certainly interesting because it looks like the PC side of things, I think once you have this digital license, if you've transferred your old game discs, potentially this could tie into having that license on a PC device on Windows as well, which could be interesting. And I'm wondering if that starts to tie into the plan for Xbox to become more of a PC thing. There had been some discussion about Xbox abandoning Steam to try to push their own Xbox storefront, where they get increased cuts of the sales, but it's looking like the source of those rumors, which was some comments made by Jez Corden, has straightened things out and said that that is not what he thinks will actually be happening. He does think that Xbox will be making a push to continue to improve their Xbox app on PC, as well as sell more games through Battle.net, because remember, Microsoft bought Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, so they do have that as a first-party platform as well. So they're looking to expand those things, but it's looking like they are not looking to pull out of Steam. They would lose a ton of revenue despite losing the cut to Valve. You just have a bigger audience on PC if you're still selling through Steam. However, this idea of pulling in your older Xbox games to potentially get you digital PC digital PC rights to those, but they'd be tied to your Xbox account, your Microsoft account, could be a way for Microsoft to try to get people to have actually a big catalog of PC games, but tied to the Xbox app and that account system if they're bringing people in. Because I think, if the next Xbox with Project Helix does indeed end up being what we think it will be, which is effectively a PC running a controller-friendly version of Windows as it boots into it, but if it lets you access Steam, then there would be the danger from the Microsoft perspective of, okay, we're building this device, but everybody just uses Steam Big Picture mode and abandons our whole thing here. We lose our cut. So maybe their plan is maybe they won't capture the existing PC users as switching over to using Xbox very much, but they could see the danger of taking in their current console user base and losing them to Steam. So one way that you can tie people into the Xbox account and brand is by having their library of previous Xbox games come with them. So I think that's what they're really trying to plan for here. I think that's what a huge part of this is if you have your incoming people who are used to playing on Xbox consoles, but now they're getting a PC which is less closed down and could access Steam, you want them to feel tied into their Xbox accounts to continue to purchase in that store and ecosystem, as opposed to switching over to Steam once the next Xbox could allow you to do so if it operates how we think it will. Of course, maybe current Xbox leadership, with changes in leadership, maybe they'll change the plan on all of that. And anyway, but all of this seems to me to be trying to do that, to have the Xbox user base as they switch into a more PC-like device, which could let them access other stores potentially, maybe feel more tied into their current ecosystem if their previous Xbox games and everything come with them. So they have that backwards catalog, keeping them in that app. So that's kind of what I think is happening here. Either way, I think it's cool from a PC perspective to have access to some original Xbox and Xbox 360 content that we didn't officially have access to previously. So I think that's cool. Now, on the Windows topic in general, especially with all of the crazy RAM prices and everything, we're seeing that Microsoft has deleted previous Windows 11 articles talking about system recommendations, especially for gaming PCs, saying that you should build 32 gigabytes of system RAM for a high-end gaming system and have at least 16. Well, as a bunch of pre-built systems and laptops are now offering only 8 gigabytes of system RAM, these articles that used to recommend more than that, made by Microsoft, are seeming to disappear. They've also promised some more RAM optimizations within Windows. I'm actually going to pull up my task manager right now. I'm just curious, what is my PC currently use? So my PC is currently in use memory at about 15 gigabytes. So, and that's pretty much just Chrome. The recording of this video is taking very little. So yeah, 8 gigabytes of system RAM sounds a little bit awful, but that's what they're shipping, so they're looking to justify it. Now, for those people looking to shift away from Windows, I mean, the Steam Machine is certainly one interesting option, but its price has been killed by the RAM situation. However, one thing is it is attracting some interesting designs and things like that. So with Valve releasing the CAD files, etc., it's being easier for people to make their own faceplate mods and things like that. This looked like an interesting design idea where the faceplate actually becomes a charging dock for the controller. I'm hoping there's still a good amount of ventilation able to happen here with the fan pulling in air, I'm assuming, down below there, but that's kind of a cool idea, I thought. Now, Linux in general, outside of SteamOS, Bazzite is a popular SteamOS-like OS, and one of the issues with moving over to Linux, though, for a lot of users has been that the Nvidia support is not anywhere near as good as the AMD support due to differences in how they handle drivers, etc. But we're seeing that the latest Bazzite testing builds have added some additional Nvidia support like suspend and power management fixes, dynamic GPU power rules, required Nvidia services enabled, new sleep-related mod probe options, Linux 7.1.5-OGC 5.1. I'm not Linuxy enough to know what any of that means. NVIDIA Open 610.43.03 drivers, etc. So basically, stuff that could be useful for the sleep and wake type thing, which if you're trying to build one of these like console competitor PC situations, having that really nice sleep and wake even while running games, etc., is one of the things I really like about my Steam Deck, and that doesn't work as well usually on Windows PCs. So getting this up and running on NVIDIA builds on Linux, this is progress in that direction, which is pretty cool. Now, on the Steam Deck side of things, one thing I actually do a lot with my Steam Deck is I stream games from my more powerful gaming PC to the Steam Deck just because the convenience of playing on the Steam Deck sometimes fits better into my schedule and my life around my house with kids, etc. Now, personally, I've been really unhappy with the built-in Steam streaming service just using Steam itself. I've been using more of the Moonlight streaming situation. You can look into that yourself. It's had much better like HDR support and just better quality streams, etc. However, it looks like Valve has been working on this with the latest Steam beta client update having some improvements to game streaming, including fixing additional cases preventing local network game transfers from starting. Well, okay, that's just general, but remote play, improved video color range, added support for HDR streaming on Steam Deck OLED, added support for AV1 video streaming while using the experimental Steam RT3 Steam client. So in general, I'm happy to see Valve working on improved streaming support because, like I said, that's a feature I actually use quite a bit, but I have to rely on third-party services for the best experience. It'd be really nice if the built-in one was the best one so that you don't have to rely on setting up third-party stuff. Now, we have AMD confirming the opening keynote at IFA 2026 will be presented by Jack Huynh, who is AMD's head of computing and graphics. Now, computing and graphics means that you might hope that there's some discussion that's GPU related, RDNA 5, something like that. But at this point, all of what they're talking about in their official announcements is talking about AI transforming the relationship between people and technology, unlocks a new frontier of human imagination, creativity, and possibility. So it certainly seems very AI-focused rather than gaming GPU-focused. However, the RDNA 5 gaming GPUs and partnering with the things that we've seen Sony talk about with Project Amethyst and their looking at the hardware for the PlayStation 6, has talked a lot about using, better AI upscaling, offering developers access to neural networks, etc., things like that for next generation of games. So it's not impossible that there will be some sort of RDNA 5 information here, but I wouldn't necessarily get my hopes up. Most of the money is in AI data center right now. AMD is making a lot of money on that, even if it's not on the Nvidia levels. So that's kind of what I'd expect out of this, but you never know. Now we've seen HWiNFO extend per chip VRAM monitoring to AMD Navi cards. After unlocking the same trick on Nvidia RTX, so we're seeing additional temperature monitoring, etc., becoming available through these tools, which is interesting. And there's been a lot of GPUs crashing, specifically Nvidia GPUs in Battlefield 6. Now it's looking like there's been a patch to now fix this, and it wasn't a driver update. So while it was seeming to cause NVIDIA driver crashes, there's always the question of, is it the game developer's fault doing something wrong that's causing the driver to crash? Or is there an issue with the drivers themselves? Like who's at fault here, right? So like we recently saw with Path of Exile 2, the developers finally getting NVIDIA to make a driver fix, which did fix a problem. But this seems to be a game fix that is stopping the driver crashes. Either way, apparently at least one cause was a weapon attachment. There was a particular weapon attachment swap that was causing crashes, as well as playing on maps with large bodies of water. So anyway, if you're having issues with those crashes, seems like the game update recently should have fixed that. Now, interestingly, despite the how expensive it is to be upgrading hardware, the latest Steam hardware survey is now showing that 8-core CPUs have surpassed 6-core CPUs as the most popular CPU count, and 16 gigabytes of VRAM is now the most common VRAM configuration, more common than 8. Now, that being said, I will say that when I looked into this, I noticed that sometimes there's odd fluctuations in certain months of the Steam hardware survey, and the VRAM capacity swinging up 1.4% for the 16 gigabyte configuration is a rather large month-to-month change when you're talking about millions and millions and millions of Steam users. That's a larger than expected swing. And I'm also noticing that that corresponded to a language swing of plus 1.43% to English. Now, I've noticed previous months where there's a large jump in Chinese language corresponding with a unusual swing in like most popular GPU and market share of AMD versus Nvidia, that type of thing. So sometimes I think that there's a shift in the sampling somehow for whatever reason in a particular month of the Steam hardware survey where some of the hardware changes are tied to a difference in who was sampled. And so if you see a shift in the language, I wouldn't expect a 1.5% increase in English language users on Steam from month to month. That seems a little bit unusual. And that tying to the exact same increase in 16 gigabyte VRAM configurations, and potentially, you know, maybe English language countries might have a, you know, higher incomes, able to afford the 16 gigabyte cards at a higher rate than other regions. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but that could potentially be a factor. But nevertheless, this is the first month that we have seen 16 gigabyte VRAM configurations as the most common one on Steam. Now, that doesn't mean it's a majority. It's about 26%, and 8 gigabyte is still extremely close. We're talking about less than a percent difference, but between the two, 8 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes does make up a majority of the Steam configurations. So there is that, with very few being under 8 gigabytes now. So most people on Steam have 8 gigabytes or more. So why are we launching a 4 gigabyte card with the 9050 AMD? Anyway, I've already ranted enough about that in previous news videos. Now, tomorrow, we're getting an open beta for Gears of War E-Day multiplayer, and they have released PC system requirements, but I want to be very specific that the reason I'm not making a, system requirements for Gears of War E-Day video is that they are very clear that these are not their launch specifications, and the game doesn't come out until October, so that's long enough there could be some changes. They said that we will update the final specifications ahead of the launch date. That being said, there's some interesting notes here. For one, a hardware ray tracing capable graphics card is required. Graphics cards without dedicated hardware ray tracing support are not supported. So that seems like kind of a big note here, because a lot of multiplayer titles certainly do not require hardware-based ray tracing support. This one does, and I know it's also a campaign, but this open beta is going to be for multiplayer. They do mention a built-in benchmark mode with advanced PC settings, so this could be a good chance for me to do some benchmarking. Looks like to get access to the open beta tomorrow, you have to pre-order the game, and then there'll be a week later a open beta that does not require pre-ordering the game. So make of that, information what you will. Normally I wouldn't pre-order things, but in order to produce content, it might make sense for me to pre-order it to do testing tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, they're asking for at least 12 gigabytes of system RAM. And on the graphics side of things, they're asking for at least an RTX 5050, RTX 2060, which is only a 6 gigabyte card, RTX 9060, RX 6600. So, I mean, one thing I'm noticing here is like an RX 9060 and an RX 6600 are just completely different performance levels. So interesting. Now, they're saying that that would be for 1080p 60 FPS at medium settings, super resolution, DLSS, FSR, TSR, and XeSS. So they could be saying those are supported, used at some level. It's unclear at it exactly what settings those may be enabled for. So maybe this is like performance mode FSR on the RX 6600, but maybe the RX 9060 could just hit 1080p 60 FPS at medium native or something like that. Who knows? This isn't really stated super clearly or super well. And then they're recommending, I do like that they're targeting 1440p 60 at high settings for the recommended, because I think that's more of a current PC like recommended. You're more of a spending a little more on your system, that kind of thing, rather than just hitting minimums kind of target. So I do like that at least. But again, unclear super resolution targets here. They're saying a 9060 XT or 6700 XT. So RX 9060 up to 9060 XT, and you might be like, wait, is there even a 9060 non-XT? Yes, there is, but it's only on pre-built systems. They don't sell them on the open market. So that's the difference there. That being said, there's not that big of a performance difference. So this isn't like increasing things a whole heck of a lot here. But again, these could be maybe using more aggressive upscaling, and maybe these are less aggressive upscaling. So I'd say that this is somewhat nonsensical as far as like trying to make any sort of actual performance claim off of this, given the unclear nature of what sort of upscaling may be involved. But like I said, it looks like there's a built-in benchmark mode, which could be useful for me looking in here. But yeah, they are requiring hardware ray tracing, at least for the open beta. It's, like I said, unclear if that will also be the case for the official game release. Because maybe they could put in some sort of a fallback solution by then, but that's where we're at now. Now, as far as are we interested in the multiplayer aspect of Gears of War E-Day, the devs have said they're embracing more old school multiplayer in 2026. There will be no battle pass, no tour of duty, no gimmicks, and no bull. So, I mean, that sounds interesting on face value. That being said, there also does seem to be some sort of premium currency to unlock things faster, but it looks like you can unlock things without buying the premium currency. So there's that. There's also both a PvE horde mode and a PvP 4v4 kind of system. So anyway, interesting. We'll make of it what we will. Like I said, I'll probably pre-order for the sake of getting access to the open beta stuff to test out over the next few days. And we'll see how what any of this actually means. Hopefully you guys found the video useful and or interesting, and y'all have an excellent day.